Hey, hi friends. So in this video, we are going to update you on the details on the Djokovic's Australian Open visa cancellation. So in the last video, I think if you have seen, we were at a position, where Djokovic had the decision in his favor and he was allowed to play in the Australian Open. And then with this, discretionary power that the Australian ministers have, they actually decided to again cancel Djokovic's visa, and that is why he was deported and he had to go back to Serbia. He was not allowed to play in the Australian Open, as well as he potentially was facing a 3-year ban to enter into the Australian territory. Well, the Australian ministers have already told that that ban could be revoked at any time, based on certain conditions. So let's hope that Djokovic plays next year at the Australian Open. It was to be honest, it was really disappointing to see the whole Djokovic saga, the way things turned out. And, if, let's say, Djokovic would have not been allowed to travel to Australia in the first place, giving the reason that the ministers gave, afterwards, I think it would have been a better situation for everyone. And who knows, if Djokovic would have known previously, he might have, gotten vaccinated and he would be playing in the Australian Open. So a lot of confusion and whatever happened was not good for anybody. And let's just analyze this situation a little bit. So in the last video also we discussed the basic rule that the Australian government has laid out, that no unvaccinated players will be allowed to play at the Australian Open unless of course they are exempted. And as per the information circulating on the net, I think 96 or 97 of the top 100 men's tennis players have been vaccinated. There are 3 or 4 unvaccinated players. Some players had to move out of Australia just because of this very reason. They did not appeal in the court, they just moved out of the country, and some have valid medical exemption. So in this video, basically we are going to talk about these specific points: the confusion, why was Djokovic allowed to travel to Australia in the first place, what was the other players' reaction to it, why has Djokovic not been vaccinated, what is the reason, because most of the people in the world are getting vaccinated. So what was the reason specifically for Djokovic? Can immunity prevent COVID-19 infection? What could be the reason? We will try to deep dive on this situation as well. And does it cause any performance issues? Maybe that was the concern for Djokovic. We'll discuss that as well. And what is the best thing to do here for Djokovic? If you're Djokovic, what should you do right now? So let's move on. So in the last video, we discussed a lot about medical exemption, and I think some of this information was incorrect, and I want to point it out correctly. So if you see the red highlighted point, if someone has tested positive for COVID-19 in the last 6 months, in which case the vaccine cannot be administered, even then the player cannot be exempted. So that was the correct rule, which I did not read, and that is why I am here to correct it. So that is why Djokovic was not granted a medical exemption, because if you see this point, if this would have been correct, Djokovic would have been granted a medical exemption, but that was not the case. So even if you have had COVID in the last 6 months, it's true that you cannot be vaccinated for a few months because of the antibodies that are already present, but it does not mean that you'll get an exemption for that. So that is basically the point, because of which Djokovic was not given a medical exemption, because he did not qualify for that. And secondly, there were some other reasons also provided by the Australian government, and we'll look at those reasons as well in the coming slides. So Djokovic's basis for medical exemption, as we have already discussed, was that he had tested positive for COVID-19 on December 16th. So he could not have taken vaccination after that. And he also mentioned that, he was not asked about his current views on vaccination. Maybe his views would have changed, because whatever, point the opposition raised in the court stated that, Djokovic's views on vaccinations were against it, basically, and that would have promoted anti-vaxxers, and also in the general public that would have created confusion that, why is Djokovic, the world #1 player in the world, not getting vaccinated? Was this the reason for that? And maybe it would have created some doubt in the mind of the general public. where Djokovic replied to that and said that he was not asked about his current views. He was opposed to vaccination, but that statement was basically misinterpreted as per Djokovic. He told that that statement was taken a year or two back, so maybe his views have changed. He was not asked about his current views, as well as the fact that he did not bluntly said that he is opposed to vaccination. He told that he's open to new ideas and he wants to have conclusive proof, but whatever is good for him he would do, and that would include getting vaccinated if that was good for him. So that was quite a skeptical remark. It's not one way or the other, and the fact that he was not asked about his views currently was his basis that that the decision to deport him was incorrect. So let's move on. And the timeline we have already seen. Just one update on January 15th or 16th, the Australian minister did cancel Djokovic's visa for the second time, and this time the court also rejected the appeal against this decision. And the reason that the court gave for this decision were two reasons specifically. One was that he was definitely not vaccinated, and even having COVID-19 in the past month did not give him a specific reason, a specific exemption to go out and play in the Australian Open, because the rule clearly stated that he has to be vaccinated. That's the only way that he could have played. Otherwise, there are a lot of different reasons, but Djokovic did not qualify for those exemptions. Secondly, the court also mentioned that this decision of Djokovic to not get vaccinated would promote anti-vaxxers, even though it's not intentional. But they said that if you look at someone, if you have a celebrity, if you have a global accepted and loved personality who is against vaccination, then definitely the anti-vaxxers could have made him as a role model and said that if Djokovic is not getting vaccinated, then so do the others should also not get vaccinated, and their belief would have been backed out by Djokovic. That was one point that the court mentioned, and also the fact that even in general public who are confused about getting vaccinated, if they look at Djokovic as a role model, they would say that if Djokovic is not getting vaccinated, then why should they might also get inspired not to be vaccinated. So that was the point in general public interest made by the Australian government and the court itself. And it's quite confusing, and some might say that that is correct, because obviously if there is a less educated general public person and who is looking at Djokovic, who is a big fan, huge fan of Djokovic, and if he is confused already whether or not he should get vaccinated, and if he sees Djokovic, obviously he will get inspired from Djokovic that if Djokovic is not getting vaccinated, if I am skeptical about vaccination, why should I get vaccinated until and unless I get a conclusive proof that it will help me fight COVID-19. So that is one side of the story, while the other side is that Djokovic did not in any time or any way say that one should not get vaccinated. He was skeptical himself and he was looking for more conclusive evidences. He was open to different ideas, but he did not mention that one should not get vaccinated. So that is the side for Djokovic. Now you decide which side is correct. So what's next for Djokovic? So it's obviously clear that Djokovic cannot participate in this year's Australian Open. He also gets a 3-year entry ban in Australia. As I mentioned, this can be revoked by the Australian Open government. Obviously, Djokovic has to be vaccinated. Otherwise, next year also he might not be able to play the Australian Open. And a few more Grand Slams like French Open, Wimbledon, and even the US Open are trying to, pass a rule, a law which says that only vaccinated players would be able to play in those Grand Slams. So again, problems for Djokovic. If he doesn't get vaccinated, then he might miss other Grand Slams as well. The latest update on this is that I heard that the French Open might pass this rule, but that would be in June, I think. So Djokovic might be able to play the French Open even without getting vaccinated, as per the latest update. But let's see what happens. And I think we have discussed a few points about these questions. So there was a confusion about the rules for everybody. I mean, Djokovic is such a respected personality. He's a celebrity. He's the world number one player. If he would have known that going to Australia without being vaccinated would cause such embarrassment and such confusion and a messy situation for everyone, he would have not flown to Australia in the first place. So there was definitely confusion in his mind, and the fact that Tennis Australia and one of the Victorian government documentation did provide a medical exemption to Djokovic, and that is why I think Djokovic decided to fly to Australia. So it definitely, displays that there was a lot of confusion and nobody was clear. Even Tennis Australia was not clear, that what is the exact rule and whether or not Djokovic will be allowed to play. So that is the second question. Now, why didn't the other players support Djokovic? So that is definitely a question for the other players. Kyrgios mentioned in one of his press conferences that he specifically pointed out Nadal, that why isn't Nadal supporting Djokovic? And Kyrgios, who actually makes a lot of remarks about Djokovic, he actually came in support of Djokovic, saying that whatever happened and the way Djokovic was treated was not good, even though Djokovic might be wrong not getting vaccinated, but the way he was treated by the Australian government and the court itself, being placed in the detention center, and not only for himself but for the others who have been in detention center for years, the general public, they have also not been treated well by the Australian government, and that was the point that uh, came out of this whole situation. Now, why did the other players did not support Djokovic? I think it's a fair guess to say that nobody wanted to be part of this messy situation, and that is why I think if you see what Murray had to say, what Nadal had to say, they all said that whatever it is, it should end quickly. Even if it goes in favor of Djokovic or against Djokovic, it should just end quickly because it's not good for everyone. The situation is not good. The situation is actually dividing players, dividing the general public, so it should end. That was the general, diplomatic response from all the other players. And now the question arises: why was Djokovic not vaccinated? And I think that was the main point that the court had raised. The court said that Djokovic had a chance to get vaccinated for a year. So when Djokovic says that he was open to ideas and he did not in public oppose the vaccination itself, but then the question arises that Djokovic had ample time to get vaccinated, and when all the other players around him, like 96 out of the top 100 players, have already gotten vaccinated, why was Djokovic not vaccinated? And there was no specific answer for that, and that is why the court could not basically keep Djokovic in Australia, because there was no answer to that question. And there are a lot of different articles over the net and a lot of talks that maybe Djokovic was skeptical about vaccination, and he was maybe trying to find different evidences of how COVID-19 could be treated, how the immunity against that infection could be developed without vaccination. And Djokovic was not clear basically, and that is why that could have been one of the reasons why he wasn't vaccinated. Now, in general public, I would say, and as what the scientists and all the medical experts have to say, I mean, it's obviously clear that immunity cannot prevent COVID-19 infection. So because it's a virus, it's going to definitely affect anybody who comes in contact of the virus. Of course, the severity could differ. If you have a strong immunity, then it could, impact you in a less harmful way. But still, one cannot say that immunity will be 100%. Even with vaccination, it will only provide you like 80 to 90% of immunity, and with specific variants, because there are like hundreds of variants which people still don't know about. Scientists are still researching on that. So even if after vaccination the 100% immunity is not guaranteed, then without vaccination, obviously there is no guarantee. So being able to treat COVID-19 infection with immunity is definitely, I don't think that's a correct argument. So we'll ignore that. Then does it cause performance issues? That's quite unclear. But the fact that all the other players have got vaccinated should actually, uh, you know, eliminate that point of concern, because if Djokovic would have gotten vaccinated himself and all the other players would not have been vaccinated or would have been given a sort of exemption, then this point would have came into picture. But because all the other fellow players are also getting vaccinated, and that is the rule that the government has passed, that means that even if it caused performance issues, it would not be greater in Djokovic, per se, than what it would have impacted in the other players. So definitely that is a point that one should consider, because everyone was getting vaccinated, and it was not only good for himself. So let's move away from Djokovic for one moment. For everyone, most of the people, if you ask Kyrgios, he replied that, he got vaccinated because of others. It's not like he wanted to get vaccinated himself, but he knew that getting vaccinated would also help others to get vaccinated and also prevent the transmission and severity of the infection, uh, you know, from him to the other people in his family, his friends, or whoever he comes in contact with. So that is a very valid point, I would say, that it's not only for yourself, it's for others. And that is why I think some of the media and some of the people called Djokovic selfish. I don't think Djokovic is selfish. Maybe he's skeptical about the vaccination, but I don't think he's selfish at all. He has done so much for the society, so much philanthropic work. So I don't think, if he knew exactly that vaccination is super beneficial for him and for all the people involved, he would have got vaccinated. And that raises the point that, again, some of the media and some of the people are saying that maybe Djokovic was not informed enough, about the benefits of vaccination. Maybe he was too skeptical, and that is the reason why he did not get vaccinated. And that shouldn't be the case, because he's a role model for all the people. So he should be aware. He should have access to all the information that he wants about vaccination. And I think some countries have even started mandating vaccination, not only for sports personalities, but for even general public. So I think that point uh, still stands, that Djokovic should get vaccinated, even if it causes performance issues, because that's the same for everyone. Now, what is the best thing to do here? Now, some people, if you are Djokovic, for example, some people are saying that Djokovic should still stand his ground for his decision not to get vaccinated and not to get forcefully vaccinated. So even if it means that he will not be able to play any more Grand Slams in his career, he should still stand by his decision. Well, I don't think that's a good choice, because firstly, the fight that he's fighting, I don't think that's the correct one. If it would have been a correct fight, if it would have been for the benefit of the people, obviously that would have been a very selfless attitude of not being able to compete in any Grand Slams, not thinking about his career at all, and just doing what is right for the people. That would have really made him a hero in the real life. But I don't think that's the situation here. The situation here is, around the globe, I think 70 to 80% of the people would say that vaccination is essential, it's important, and it's beneficial for people. And so if Djokovic is fighting against it, or if he's saying that he's opposed to vaccination, I don't think he should continue doing that. He should definitely stop. If I were Djokovic, I would recommend that he should get vaccinated as soon as possible, and then he should send a message in public as well. And I think that's the truth, that he was skeptical previously, but now he is educated. He knows the importance of vaccination. He has been in contact with a lot of scientists and the medical experts, and the fact that he already has like 70 to 80% stake in one of the organizations, one of the companies who are actually trying to find out a treatment for COVID, that itself says that Djokovic is willing to do the right thing. So I think he should get vaccinated. He should put this, messy situation to bed. He should forget about it, and he should try to focus on his tennis once again. That is the best thing to do here. That would also send a good response, also improve his image in the public, as well as, that would be the right thing to do here, based on the, expert opinion of all the medical experts and all the scientists and all the medical fraternity around the world. So, what is your view? Please post that in the comments, and I hope you got more details about this whole situation. Thanks for watching.